Hello, everybody. It's Jacob from Wager Me This here. This is going to be Wednesdays with Wager Week 10, 1-0. This is an NFL show, so if you're interested in NFL sports betting, I handicap the NFL and a lot of other sports, but you have to join my Discord for those other sports. My Discord is free to join, so if you're interested, send me an email to wagermethis@gmail.com and I will send you an invite. So let's get on to this week. We have a pretty good Thursday night game this week. It's Cincinnati versus Baltimore. One of the things I just want to bring up about this game right away is that this game is very important for both teams. And why I want to say that, and I got a lot of reasons here why this game means a lot to both teams. One of the reasons is Pittsburgh is good. And Pittsburgh is leading that division right now with the easiest schedule going forward. Now, when I say easiest schedule going forward, they play both of these teams twice. Pittsburgh does. But in Pittsburgh's history, they tend to either beat these teams outright or split with them. And I feel like that's going to be kind of the similar this year. I know Baltimore's real high flying. The Bengals score a lot of points too, but when they play Pittsburgh, they don't. And this has been the case even last year when Baltimore's offense was good. When they played Pittsburgh, they didn't score very many points. And I think it's going to be a similar outcome this year as well. Pittsburgh just plays these teams really well. Actually, Pittsburgh pretty well owns these teams over the last 30 years or so. For the most part, Pittsburgh dominates these guys. Even when Pittsburgh loses, they lose games that are like 10-7 and stuff like that. So this game, back to these two teams, this game matters a lot. If Cincinnati loses this game, they're probably not going to make the playoffs because the rest of their schedule looks like they have the Chargers, the Steelers twice, Cowboys and Titans, and Browns. But the Chargers in 2 Steeler games, how is it going? The Chargers and the 2 Steelers games, those are probably 3 losses right there for this Bengals team. Now, maybe not. They might split, and maybe they get the Chargers. But those are all really tough defenses. The Cowboys, who knows what the Cowboys are going to do? They'll probably lose. Titans and the Browns always play Cincinnati tough. And the Browns might give them a game at the end of the year there when they might be able to knock Cincinnati out of the playoffs. So Cincinnati really needs to win this game. That'll just get them back to 500. On Baltimore's side, so here's what Baltimore's the rest of their schedule looks like. It's not simple either. They got the Steelers twice, the Chargers, the Eagles. They get the Giants, which should be a win. Then they get a tough Texans game where the Texans and Baltimore might be playing for something there. They might be playing for seeding, maybe the 2 seed there. And then they get the Browns again as well. Now, those aren't in order necessarily. The Bengals ones were in order, but those ones aren't necessarily in order. So just the schedules kind of line up for both of these teams, kind of playing the same teams and just not easy roads. So these are must-win games. This is a must-win game for both of these teams. And if you look at the total is based on the first game this year when they had that crazy shootout that Baltimore ended up winning in overtime on that really long Derrick Henry run. And Baltimore's laying 6.5 here. I think you can find it 6 in some places. I think this total is really high at 52.5. And I know they got there in the first game. They got there easily. I would be surprised if they get there in this game too. I actually think this stays under that. And I know Baltimore's this really high-flying offense this year. Hello. But I think they've got too many mouths to feed now. They added another receiver. They already had plenty of receivers. They added another one. They got 2 tight ends. They got 2 running backs, basically. And then Lamar wants to get rushing yards. I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed there in Baltimore. And I actually think that catches up to them a little bit. Sometimes less is more. and I think Baltimore's they've just done too much. And I think it catches up. I think guys start, complaining, your Batemans and stuff. Even Dion, what is his name? The guy that used to play for the Steelers, I can't remember his name, Deontay or something. But he just got over there. It's just too many. It's way too many mouths to feed there in Baltimore, especially with their style of play where they feed Derrick Henry and Lamar runs the ball. I know it's pretty now, but it's really not working great. It really isn't. I know everyone's high on Baltimore because they have these huge games, but they've lost 3 times. Baltimore has lost 3 games this year. They're not just like these world beaters. I feel like that the media and stuff would want you to believe. They've actually struggled. There's just a handful of games where they didn't, and their defense has been really, really bad. It's not been good at all. Who'd they play last? It was good in their last game, and that's the first game. It's just been really solid for a while. I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was Denver. Yeah, they dominated Denver. But I mean, it's Denver. It's a rookie quarterback, Bo Nix. Denver doesn't have the best offense ever. There's no doubt about that. I think this Baltimore D gives up a lot, and Cincinnati has some issues of their own. They may have T. Higgins, may not. So I'm acting like they're not going to have T. Higgins in this one. I just think that there's way too much going on here for this game to really get out of hand, and these two teams tend to play really close. They played in the playoffs, played really close. So I like Cincinnati plus the points here. I know it's on the road, but this is such a huge game. It's divisional, and both of them need it to keep pace with the Steelers or even have a shot at the Steelers if the Steelers stumble a little bit. So I like the points here. I think this one stays close. I think Joe Burrow probably has a pretty good game in this one playing against this defense. And I know Baltimore went and got Tre'Davious White, but guys, Tre'Davious White hasn't covered anything for a long time. He has not been great for a while. So that's not a huge pickup, it's just more money. So the way I'm looking at this one is I like Cincinnati. I'm staying away from that total 52 and a half. Everything says it should fly over that number, right? So in my opinion, it probably won't. It's one of those deals where 52 and a half, so you're starting to get to where you need 7 touchdowns and more than a field goal, right? 52 and a half, you got to have 7 touchdowns and then more than a field goal. That's a whole bunch. That's way more than you're likely going to get in most NFL games. So to me, that number is just too high. If I was going to have to bet that number, I would definitely go under. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just going to take the points with the Cincinnati Bengals. I actually think this game stays in the 20s. I think this is 27, 24, 24, 21, something like that. And I know those are close to 52 and a half, right? 27, 24 is 51. That's a lot of scoring. And that still doesn't beat 52 and a half on an over. So keep that in mind. If you are going to shoot at this over, you really got to have a high scoring game. It's a lot of stuff has to go your way to get over 52 and a half in a pro game. All right, so let's talk about some props in this one. I like all the Ja'Marr Chase props because I don't think T. Higgins is going to play. Now, if he does play, I still like most of the Ja'Marr Chase props, but T. Higgins does take some receptions away. So I'm betting Ja'Marr Chase touchdown. I'm betting his receptions over 6.5, and I'm betting to have over 83.5 yards. So I think he is going to be the focal point of the offense. And if you look back, he torches the Ravens. Last game, I think he had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that, some crazy number. I think he probably does something similar in this one. They don't have a lot of top-end talent without T. Higgins out there. They have a lot of younger guys. With Ja'Marr Chase he's going to be the focal point, and I don't think the Ravens can cover him. They haven't covered any other receivers, so I don't know why they'd start, and they didn't cover him in the first game. I just don't think that changes any yet. Maybe they get better as toward the end of the year, but I don't think it's there yet. And I like Burrow over 269.5 passing yards. They had to get a new running back. They just can't. They don't run the ball. They don't run the ball very well at all. Um, Hello, Dusted One. How are you, man? They just don't run the ball very well at all. I think Burrow's going to throw the ball 40 times in this one. And so I like Joe Burrow over 269.5 on the passing yards. And jumping over to Lamar, I like Lamar over 232.5 passing yards. And the reason is because with all those mouths to feed, I do think they're going to throw the ball. And I don't think the Bengals can stop the pass either. They didn't stop it in the first game, and they haven't stopped it in a lot of games. They didn't stop it against Jaden Daniels, the Washington guy. I just don't. I don't think either of these defenses stop all that much. Oh, Bob. And so that's where I'm at on this one. I like the Bengals plus 6.5. I like Jamar Chase, all three of his props, the touchdown, the receptions over 6.5, and the yards over 83.5. And I like both quarterbacks to go over their passing totals at 269.5 for Burrow and 232.5 for Lamar. As you can see, I stayed away from the rushing props. And I'll explain why. Because Derrick Henry's are really inflated. He's not going to have 120 yards every game. There's going to be some games that he doesn't. And I don't want to be on the wrong side of that one. You can't bet his touchdowns unless you're betting two because they make it minus 200. So, and then on Cincinnati, I don't trust any of their rushing props. So I'm not, unless I was just going to go for unders. But I hate going unders on player props just because a lot of player props can be one in one play. So like if you have a guy, and let's say the Cincinnati Bengals guy is 54 rushing yards. Well, he could have a 55-yard rush. Like that could happen. And so I tend to not go under on player props. I don't, they always burn me. Every time I go under, it seems like I get burned, and I'll get burned by like 3 yards, so I tend to just stay on the overs on the player props. So if I know a lot of people think that sharps always bet unders and all that, guys, that's not true. It's not true. That might be something that you hear they promote or something. But the sharp money is not always on the under. In fact, on this game, the sharp money is on the over. I guarantee the sharp money is on the over, even though it's an inflated number. And I would say the sharp money is probably on Cincinnati to cover the 6.5. But guys, make no mistake, and this is what I'm going to talk about this week. I always try to talk about something. When they talk about pros versus Joes, sharps versus the regular people out there betting, that used to be a thing, guys. That used to be a thing. That's not a thing anymore. I know there's other handicapping shows and different things that will still say that that's a thing. But guys, the public has outperformed the Vegas like 3 years in a row. If you bet all the most public bets, you actually would have come out ahead. You might have lost on the juice, but the winning, they actually have a winning record like 3 years in a row. I don't have all the stats in front of me, but I actually brought this up last year and the year before when I was proving to people that public bets, the perception of a public bet versus a pro bet, that's not really a real thing anymore. That used to be a real thing, and I'll explain why. That used to be a real thing when all the information wasn't just available to everybody. But now you have all these shows of all these so-called sharp bettors making shows giving you their picks. So are they giving you out public picks? No, of course not. So that's one thing. So some sharp plays, as they used to call it, have become more public plays, right? And then also you have just the saturation of the betting market with all the betting sites and all the different ESPNs involved. And so there's so much more analytical data out of there, and everyone knows about DVOA now. And there's just so much more out there for the public, as they call it, to read. They can read the same numbers. They can extrapolate the same information. So the only thing that really separates a good handicapper from just a good public bettor, as you might want to call it, is some situational aspects of it, right? Understanding why you might bet a road dog or a home dog, or understanding why what injured player theory means. Like there's just a few things that aren't just general public knowledge. They can't just click a button and look up. So with that in mind, that's why, in my opinion, that Pro and Joe stuff that doesn't really exist anymore, because all the information they have is one click away for everybody that has an iPhone or everyone that has the internet. You can get all the same information. You can get the information from them. So all these guys that say that stuff, they all have sites, they all have YouTube shows. So that whole public pro thing, that's not a thing anymore, guys. Used to be. It did used to be, when you had to be subscribed to the Gold Sheet, and you had to have, Phil Steele's book, and you had to have all these things that gave you all these different trends, and you had to subscribe to these magazines, and or you had to keep up with all that yourself. But that's all one click away now. All that info is one click away. You can listen to the radio shows. You can listen to the, every YouTube handicapper out there. It's all media anyone can absorb now. So that whole pros Joe's thing's not a real thing anymore. Not in my opinion. So when you hear, oh, this bet's super public or this bet's super sharp, probably not anymore. It just means that a lot of people are betting on it. Could be sharps too. A lot of times, here's another thing that I always think is so funny, is that a lot of games, sharps might be on both sides of it. So there might be some sharps that are on one side, and then some sharps like the other side. So which side is the sharp side if you have sharps on both sides? So just a lot of stuff in that is all just to sell tickets. You know what I mean? It's all to sell tickets to these guys' gambling websites, to these guys handicapping, pay for their handicapping because they're sharper than this group or whatever. It's all mumbo jumbo, guys. You can get good picks for free all over the internet. I see it all the time. I see guys the one lady that works for ESPN or one of those places, I think last year she was like 17-2 or something on some Twitter bet that she was doing, like some crazy run like that, and it was all prop bets. So I mean, make no mistake, guys, all that stuff's a thing of the past. All right, let's go. Unless you guys have some questions about that I can answer. Remember, this is all my opinion on this, although some of the stuff is not opinion, like the record of the public versus Vegas is even though it's not a huge advantage, the public actually won more public bets than they lost last year and the year before and this year so far. That we're going on the third year in a row where the public bets are actually winning more than they lose. Again, it's because they're not public anymore. It's just everyone is everyone now. It's all just gamblers versus Vegas, or versus whatever site you use. All right, let's get to the Sunday plays. So one of the biggest games on Sunday is Pittsburgh versus Washington. All right, so Pittsburgh comes in with a solid defense, really good defense actually, and Russell Wilson playing as good as he's played in a long, long time. Pittsburgh is built for Russell Wilson. They are built how he likes to play. They have some good deep threats. They run the ball pretty well, and they play defense. If it sounds just like the Seattle team, it's because it's just like the Seattle team. All right, when they were good. Really good defense, run the ball really good. Russell Wilson can throw a couple moon balls every game, and boom, they win games. So Pittsburgh's getting 3. Anytime Pittsburgh's getting points, I like to get on them because there's 3 things that I always look at on every single game. I look at best coach, best defense, best quarterback. If they all line up on one side, I always play that team. They hardly ever all line up on one side, but they do sometimes. In this case, they don't all line up on one side. I feel like you can easily say Jalen Daniels is better than Russell Wilson. The defense for Steelers is better. And the coaches are probably a wash because Dan Quinn's a really good coach. Tomlin is also a really good coach. Both guys have Super Bowls, and now Quinn's is as a assistant. He did go to a Super Bowl as a head coach with Atlanta. So both of them are really good coaches. So, but I feel like it's like 1-1 there. So I still like my Pittsburgh side. I like Pittsburgh +3 there against Washington. Plus, this is probably the best defense Washington has seen. Um, and I think they're going to have some problems with it. I really do. I think Washington's going to struggle with Pittsburgh. And also, don't be surprised if Daniels doesn't get knocked out of this game. This is a pass rush he hasn't dealt with, and those guys are rough, and he's a little fragile. Plus, he's already a little banged up from a couple of weeks ago. So I also think that that's a real possibility in this one. So I like Pittsburgh plus the points there, +3. Again, that could be a 3-point game easily. Washington could win 17-14 or something. But at least you're going to tie then. Moving on. This one, I like Minnesota -4.5 versus Jacksonville. Minnesota's coming off a Thursday game, so it's kind of like extended rest, I guess. I guess you'd call it extended rest. Or did they play Sunday night? Maybe I'm wrong on that. I thought they played Thursday, but now I'm thinking they played Sunday night. Sorry, that's my bad. But either way, against Jacksonville, I just don't. They're laying 4.5. I think that's a short line because Minnesota seems to be kind of wavering a little bit. But I don't think Jacksonville's better than the Colts, and they covered that on the Colts. I just don't. I don't think Jacksonville is within 4.5 points of Minnesota. I also think Minnesota with Justin Jefferson, Jacksonville will have no answer for him. So I also like Jefferson to go over his yardage total. Obviously, I don't have it yet because it's not out yet, but I do think he goes over his yardage total in that one. I always like Jefferson, at least some kind of prop on him because he's high. His usage rate is way up, right? That's how it goes, man. Um, it's just a crazy terminology in the way they say it because anyone that has a computer or a phone can look up all the information and figure it out themselves. At least get a good guess at it because that's all anyone does that's handicapping is they take a bunch of information and then they make an educated guess. And that's what they do. And that's what handicappers do. The good ones make educated guesses at around 60%. The bad ones, they can be as bad as they can be. But it's really not all that complicated. It's really just about research and it's just about understanding football a little bit. Like when you see totals of 52 and stuff, like how do you even get to 52? Or if you see a total of 34, you're like, wow, how low of scoring does it have to be 34? Just there's sometimes you see stuff that just doesn't make sense for football. And that's what happens often. All right, so Minnesota -4.5. I like them versus Jacksonville. I know it's in Jacksonville, but I think Minnesota travels just fine. Their defense is solid. I don't think Jacksonville will do much against them. I think they'll struggle. I think Minnesota, and plus Minnesota needs a win. They need some wins just in case because they're playing for a wild card now. Because I don't think anyone's catching Detroit in that division, so they gotta get through. Atlanta -4 versus New Orleans. Now this is tricky because who knows who New Orleans is going to play. But New Orleans has traded off some players. Atlanta is leading that division, looking to kind of put a stranglehold on that division with the win versus New Orleans. It'll really all but wrap it up because of Tampa Bay's problems. I think Tampa Bay's problems are too big. They're too large with the receivers being out. Again, they played a great game against Kansas City. But let's not forget that they were never really ahead in that game, right? I mean, I know right there at the end or whatever, but let's be honest. They were never really winning the game. They were just always in the game. And that's a testament to Baker Mayfield and the way Tampa Bay played. I think they played a great game. But did they ever really have a chance? Meh, not really. So, again, I like Atlanta. I know we got on to Tampa Bay there, but we're actually talking about Atlanta here. I like Atlanta laying the 4. I don't think that's enough. I think that should be 7. So Atlanta -4 to me is probably one of the better bets of the day. Um, I just don't trust New Orleans right now. Even if Derek Carr's back, I just don't think they're not built to win right now, and they just fired a coach. There's way too much going on there for me to not jump on Atlanta with a really short line like 4. Um, I think Atlanta can easily win a 27-14 game and it not even look good. So, like Atlanta. All right, let's go to Buffalo -4 also versus Indy. Now, the only reason I'm really even getting into this one is number one, Indy plays in a dome, and you're going to put Buffalo in a dome um, with Josh Allen and his ability. I I don't think this is close. I actually think the Bills score a lot of points in this one. Whether they have their Cooper or not, I actually don't think he'll be there. But the other guys are playing just fine, and I think Indy's kind of shell shocked. They're kind of figuring out a quarterback situation. Flacco isn't playing great. He played okay, not great. They're not going to put Richardson back in there after he tapped out, and Buffalo's probably going to roll these guys. It may not look good early because Buffalo kind of starts slow sometimes, but by the end, I think this is bumping 17, 20 point win. I just don't know where Indy gets the offense from, especially if they can't figure out which their quarterback they're going with. And if they go with Richardson, it'll be worse. At least Flacco will make it respectable, but 4 points, not much. I think laying that 4 there is a pretty easy bet to me. Buffalo -4. Okay, so here's a fun one. The Patriots versus Chicago. I'm taking under 38.5. And let me explain why. Because both the offenses are terrible. Both of these offenses are awful. And I like Caleb Williams. I like Drake May. But I don't think either of them do much against these defenses. Where are they getting 38 points from? That's my thing. I can't figure out where they get 38 points because I don't think both teams get to the 20s. And that's kind of what it would take to get over 38. So I like the Pats in Chicago under 38.5. I would be surprised if this game is higher scoring than like 17-13. I think that's kind of where it hangs out, somewhere in there. I don't think it gets close to this number. And then we got the Jets versus Arizona. And I like that over 46.5. Over 46.5 in Jets in Arizona. Guys, I'm going to say something about this. The Jets are going to be a good offense from here on out. Devontae Adams and Wilson are figuring out how to play together. We saw it in their last game where they kind of shredded Houston. Now, Houston obviously was all banged up, but Arizona isn't going to pose that much of a threat. I know Arizona's leading their division, and this is a big game for them, but I'm not saying the Jets are going to beat them. I'm just saying that their Jets are going to score on them. And I think Arizona scores on the Jets as well. I know the Jets defense statistically is really good, but they're going to have to chase Kyler Murray around, and they're probably not going to like that. So I think that eliminates some of what the Jets do on defense, where the Jets, when they rush, they kind of collapse and they rush from the inside where all their pass rushers are. And you rush Kyler Murray from the inside, he just gets outside and makes plays on you. So I actually think this is a pretty easy over, the over 46.5. So let me recap my single plays. I got a bunch of props that I like as well. But I'm going to recap these single plays first. So I like Pittsburgh +3, Minnesota -4.5, Atlanta -4, Buffalo -4. That's a lot of -4s. The Pats in Chicago under 38.5, the Jets in Arizona over 46.5. So let's talk about some props. All right, let's jump over here to the props. And now, obviously, I haven't bet these because, well, if they're not in the Thursday night game, I don't have a prop for them yet. Some sites will put them up, but None of the sites I use. Usually I have to wait until Friday. But so we got Bo Nix interception versus Kansas City. Bo Nix I think he's thrown 11 interceptions this year. He'll probably throw one against KC. At least there will be some shots at it. Again, we probably would have hit our Mayfield one early last week against Kansas City, but the DB just dropped it. It was thrown right to him, and he dropped it. So that sucked. But still, I like Bo Nix to throw a pick. I like Kelsey's yardage over. Anytime Kelsey's playing against Denver, he tends to get a ton of yards. I can't remember. I looked it up one time. I think he's had like 1,300 yards in his career just against the Broncos. And I'm a Broncos fan, guys. So Kelsey just shreds us as a Broncos fan. And I think he does it in this one. The last couple games, he's just been on fire. DeAndre Hopkins has taken a lot of the pressure off of him. I don't see how Denver stops this. And Denver traded away one of their linebackers. So I think Kelsey shreds Denver again here. Russell Wilson over 1.5 pass touchdowns. I don't think Washington's secondary is going to stop Pittsburgh from throwing the football. So I think Russ gets 2 pass touchdowns pretty easily in the game. I don't know how good or bad the juice will be on that one. It probably won't be great, but I do like that prop. Then I like Trevor Lawrence interception. He's playing against Minnesota. Minnesota leads the league in interceptions, or they're second, one of the two. Lawrence is going to have to throw the ball in that game. He'll throw it to Minnesota at least once. For Tampa Bay is playing against San Francisco, but I'm taking Cade Otton on his yards. We saw against Kansas City that they are going to just feed Cade Otton the football. I think they do the same thing against San Francisco. San Francisco and Kansas City are somewhat similar in the way their defenses play. I think that they just do the same thing where Mayfield just throws the ball within 2 seconds, bang, 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 out in the flat to Cade Otton. Now, I know they had some film on that from last week, so Tampa will probably make some adjustments to that, but I think it's still the same thing because he's their most skilled player that isn't broken, that's not hurt. So I like the Cade Otton receiving yards. If you don't know who Cade Otton is, he's the tight end for Tampa Bay. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end. And then in the Jets game, I like Adams and Wilson to score a touchdown. They both scored in the last game. I think they both scored in this game as well. I think that's going to be, I think every other player on the Jets is not worth betting props now that Adams and Wilson are figuring it out together. Because if you know Aaron Rodgers' history, he kind of focuses on one receiver or sometimes a second one and just feeds them the ball. He has trust issues, we'll call it, but he's just real bad about that. He always has been. And I think he has both of his guys now, and I don't think really any other Jets prop is worth playing, just those two, unless you're going to play Rodgers as passing yards or something. All right, let's talk about some teasers this week. I'm going to give out, I got 5 teaser sides or totals that I like. You mix and match them how you think. But Kansas City's -8. I like teasing them down to -2. The Chargers are -7.5 versus Tennessee. I like teasing them down to 1.5. Pittsburgh's +3. I like teasing them up to 9. The Pats in Chicago under. I like taking that from 38.5 to 44.5. And then the Eagles -7 versus Dallas. I like teasing that down to -1. Who knows who Dallas is even going to play at quarterback, so that's probably going to be real ugly. I would lay the 7 with the Eagles, but it's still divisional, and I don't know. I still don't fully trust the Eagles yet, but they'll probably cover the 7. So to recap my teaser plays, I like Kansas City -8, the Chargers -7.5, Pittsburgh +3, Patriots Chicago under 38.5, Eagles -7. When you tease it, 6-point teaser, guys, I suggest you don't pair more than 2 games, 2 sides, 2 totals, whatever it is, on your teasers. I don't suggest you go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 25, whatever it is you do. Just do 2. It's much easier to win. So if you guys have any questions, ask away. I'll see if I can answer them, or I'll at least give you an answer that's my answer. My chat is boring tonight. Well, thank you. Yeah, we don't have. I guess I didn't get connected to India or anything, Googs. I don't know what's up. Um, I guess I'm not cool no more. Maybe YouTube's not promoting me or something again. I don't know. But those were definitely wild chats, weren't they? The last couple weeks. Not this one though. I don't know what's up with that. Probably Dusted scared them away. But anyways, if you guys special guest missing, that's right. If you guys don't have any questions, then I will get off here. Again, thank you guys for watching and making this show cool. I think last week on the video, I think I went 9-2 or something like that, right? 9-3 maybe. Either way, it was 9 wins and 2 or 3 losses, which is really good. If you bet the rest of the bets with me, you did worse. If you got on my Discord, because some of them didn't come in. But anyway, that's what I got. If you guys have any questions, please ask. If not, I'm jumping off. What's your thoughts on D-Hop TD prop? Okay, my thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins TD prop are Patrick Surtain is going to be on him. I don't know how much that matters, but that's the reason I stayed away from it. He did catch 2 last game. I imagine Surtain is going to follow him around most of the game. Again, in the red zone, I don't know that matters. I think Mahomes, they're going to scheme him open, and D-Hop makes contested catches. So I feel like if you're getting plus 125 on it, plus 120, it's worth it. If you're getting minus 110 or something, it's probably not. But if you're getting a little bit of plus money, it's probably worth a shot because Mahomes is going to throw him the ball in the red zone. He's proven that already. Mahomes is already getting a rapport with him pretty quickly, so I expect him to get the ball. I just playing against Surtain, I just don't always. I just don't always. I don't like to bet against the really good corners because teams tend to just avoid them, right? Even the Chiefs aren't immune to that, just avoiding them. Now, the one difference with the Chiefs is they will scheme their guys open. The Chiefs definitely call plays just for guys, for specific guys. So there's always that. Plus, D-Hop is better than Surtain in the red zone. He'll have the advantage. That's pretty good. 155 is worth a bet for sure. I wouldn't have thought it would be in that high after the touchdowns barrage he had this week. But again, he has Surtain on him, and that's probably what they're handicapping there. And it's at 1.5 to 1. It's worth a bet. I'll probably get on that myself for that game. I'll probably wait till about around game time, but that's at 1.5. It's worth it, especially because he's going to get red zone looks. Did they get thrown? I don't know, but he's definitely going to be in the play in the red zone, and it's going to matter. And I think Mahomes is going to start throwing fade routes to him. If you guys don't know anything about the Chiefs really haven't had a fade route receiver for a while. It's always been Travis Kelce, so they really haven't had a fade route guy for a while. The last real fade route. Okay, I'll talk about. Yeah, that's awesome, Googs. The last real fade route receiver that the Chiefs had was probably Sammy Watkins. And so Hopkins can run the fade. He's a good high point guy. If you're betting Hopkins touchdown, that's where it's at. Now, we also saw that Mahomes is going to use him as a possession receiver, so his receptions are probably a good bet as well. Any of these, Denver traded away some of their defense. I don't think they'll be as good. Plus, I don't think Bo Nix will have a very good game in this one. I think the Chiefs will get some extra chances, which is always good for the offensive props, right? The more chances your offense gets, if you're betting offensive props, it's just good for it. The one thing is, I would stay away from Kareem Hunt props. I do think Denver will be able to stop the run a little bit. But outside of that, Denver secondary is really good, but we'll see how they're good against this team. Travis Kelce smokes Denver every year, so I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to cover him and DeAndre Hopkins. Sorry. I just don't know how they're going to cover both of the guys. Again, I could be totally wrong and they can get it done, but I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet that they can cover both of them. So, and I'm a Denver guy. Now, one thing about this game is I might look at the under. I think it's 42.5, which makes a lot of sense because the Chiefs aren't interested in beating you by 20. They're interested in winning. That's it, right? And I don't think Denver's going to score a lot in this one. So the under in that game, I almost put it on here. I like both Googs. Now, if his receptions are up at like 8.5, 9.5, I would stay away from him. But the yards will probably be 70, 68, something like that. And I think that's a pretty easy bet. But DeAndre Hopkins changed the Chiefs. The Chiefs were already really good. They were already won all the games that they've played. But DeAndre Hopkins gives them a real legitimate pass catching threat. And what I mean by that is a guy that Mahomes, we saw it in the game last week. Mahomes just threw that ball up on third down the middle of the field to him into triple coverage. And the only guy that had a real shot at it was Hopkins, right? And Hopkins comes down with it, no problem. You saw he didn't even get up, and they weren't even cheering about it, or like they weren't even like jumping up and down how great of a catch it was. They just got up and lined up and ran another play because they're the Chiefs, and that's normal. The Chiefs, they're so frustrating. To be so good, they're so frustrating. But I get it. I'm sure my team frustrated Chiefs fans for years when we went from John Elway all those years right into Peyton Manning, and we dominated the Chiefs for 2 decades. So I can't be mad at them for kicking our butt for a while, you know. And plus, I'm a big Mahomes fan. I like Mahomes. Thanks, Bob. You guys got any more questions? If you do, I'll try to answer them. If not, you'll have a great night. I actually have my hybrid video to upload. My phone is acting stupid. For some reason, my reception on my phone ain't working right. I don't really know what's going on. You know, it's weird because I'm a fan of a lot of different players. I'm not necessarily a fan of all their teams, but a lot of players. Like I'm a big Matthew Stafford fan. Googs knows this. I always thought Matthew Stafford was getting a raw deal in Detroit, and he should have, you know, coming out. In my opinion, Matthew Stafford was one of the best quarterbacks that I'd ever seen coming out of college. As far as ready for the pros, he played like a pro. He was big, you know. He had a big arm. Like it made a lot of sense. But he went to Detroit, and even though they gave him Megatron, they just never did nothing. It was Detroit, you know. So it was long overdue for him to end up somewhere to win. And you saw he goes the first year he goes to a real franchise that was trying to win, and you know they were trying to win. They got Von Miller halfway through the year, Odell Beckham. They got all these guys halfway through the year, and they won a Super Bowl. And now Detroit is really good off of the Matthew Stafford trade. That's what a lot of people don't realize is that Matthew Stafford also facilitated Detroit being good. A lot of these players that came from that trade are these guys that are really good on Detroit now. So he also helped Detroit leaving Detroit. So Matthew Stafford's just a really good guy. I thought I've always thought he's one of the best quarterbacks in his era, for sure. Here's one thing that's gonna people will think is crazy, but Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. If Matthew Stafford would have been on Green Bay, they would have won 3 or 4 Super Bowls. But he was on Detroit. If he would have had the same players that Aaron Rodgers had, he would have won MVPs and he would have won Super Bowls. It's just the organization matters a lot in the NFL. It really does. It matters where you go. And there's all kinds of evidence of that. Look at Geno Smith. Geno Smith was crap at the Jets. He's playing pretty well at Seattle. Better organization, better coaching. There's a lot of instances of that where guys just landed in the wrong spot. You can take, there's even some different kind of sample sizes of that where Carson Palmer. Now, when Carson Palmer was a Bengal, they had a bunch of great receivers and they were high flying and they probably should have won the Super Bowl one year, but Carson Palmer got hurt in the playoffs. Well, he goes to Arizona, plays really well. It just really depends on where you end up. It really does. And some of the guys don't get their shot, right? And then some guys like Stafford get a shot at the end of their career. Sam Darnold's another great example, at least up to this point, right? I mean, and also it depends on how your team focuses on you, because in the NFL, you have to focus on the quarterback. You have to. Let's not forget, like guys like Brady was a 6th-round pick. Ben Roethlisberger came from Miami of Ohio. I mean, sometimes it just depends on how your team focuses on you as well. Ben Roethlisberger went to probably the best ran organization in the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers are probably the best run organization. They've had 3 coaches in like 100 years. They've won Super Bowls with every coach. It's just important where you go in the NFL. It's like college football, but even more important, because every year you guys go into the year and there is 22 teams. You can say right away, you walk into the year, you can just know a little bit of football and you're like, yeah, they can't win. They can't win the Super Bowl. And you know that walking into the year. They're not going to win. 22 teams. There's 10 teams that have a shot, and then there's like 3 or 4 that are probably going to win it, right? And this isn't a hard thing to guess. Yeah, so Tennessee really hurt Marcus Mariota, right? They really hurt him. Marcus Mariota needed to be with Kyle Shanahan. He needed to be in that type of offense, more of a scheme-based running attack offense. He could have been really good with Harbaugh. Those type of offenses that need the mobility. He went to Tennessee. They weren't interested in that. They wanted to try to change who he was. Plus, Marcus Mariota is a little bit of a head case. If you watch the quarterback series, he's a little bit of a head case. But still really good quarterback in college. And he hasn't been terrible in the pros. He's just not been great either, right? I did. You want me to recap them real quick, Enslow? I like Cincinnati plus 6.5. Jamar Chase TD, Jamar Chase receptions over 6.5. Jamar Chase over 83.5 yards. Burrow over 269.5 passing yards. And Lamar over 232.5 passing yards. I know this total's 52.5. I don't think it gets there. It might. The first game was crazy. But no T. Higgins. So no T. Higgins. I think all of that gets shifted to Chase. At least no T. Higgins up to this point. And I don't think he's going to play. So that's where I'm at on it. I like the Bengals here. I think they're playing for as much as the Baltimore is. I'm going to bring this up again. I want to talk about this again. Baltimore has lost 3 games. And they get talked about like they're on the Chiefs level, like they're on Detroit's level. They've lost 3 times. They lost to the Raiders. I mean, and I know one of the losses is to the Chiefs, and that's a good loss, I guess, if there's a good loss in the NFL. But they're not on that level yet. When Baltimore goes up against the really good teams, you see it. They're not the same football team. Their defense is terrible, by the way. If I didn't mention that earlier, it's not good, which is crazy to say under Harbaugh, right? He's always had these great defenses, but I just think the defense got too expensive last year, right? Yeah, they lost to the Browns. I mean, and Jameis Winston, Brown. It's like, how are they on the same level as these other two teams? Because I do think Detroit and Kansas City have clearly separated themselves. And then there's some teams that are not too far behind them as far as this year goes, but I do think that they are the two top tier. Um, so that's where I'm at on that. But I don't think Baltimore's there. I don't think Baltimore's. I know Baltimore blew the doors off of Buffalo, but I think if they play in the playoffs and they have to go to Buffalo because Baltimore's a wild card because Pittsburgh wins the division or something, I don't think they can go to Buffalo and win. That's not. I don't think they can do that. So I think that there's way more um, that Baltimore has to figure out on defense, and they went and spent a bunch of money on offense. That their offense is already really good. So, but they thought it was a good idea to go blow more money on it. I don't know. Baltimore makes weird decisions, and they're a pretty well run organization, but man, they make some really weird decisions sometimes. So again, I don't know. 3 loss team, they're not as good as the undefeated and the 1 loss team. So now I get Detroit should have more than 1 loss. They should. Um, the Rams kind of got screwed because it was an overtime game, but the Rams outplayed Detroit in that game. And the Lions won losses against Tampa Bay in a game that Mayfield just was a gamer, and he got it done, and the defense got it done. But the Lions are still a really good football team, so I don't know. I like them. I like them good enough. I was not a fan at the beginning of the year. I actually thought they'd fall on their face, but they're making football fun, and that's always it's hard to root against when a team makes it fun when they do crazy stuff. So I'm on board. But anyways, you guys have a great night. This is Jacob from Wager Me This. Hopefully you guys like the picks. Hopefully we crush it again. It's always good to win, right? Remember, no matter how good you are at handicapping, you're going to have weeks where it don't go your way. It just happens. You're going to have weeks where it just goes wrong. You can have all the right handicaps and just weird stuff happens. Quarterback goes down. Guy misses 3 field goals. Just weird stuff can go on. So keep that in mind, guys. This is not a lottery ticket. Gambling on sports is not a lottery ticket. It is an investment. And you need to win slowly. You need to gain slowly, right? So you guys have a great day. This is Jacob from Wager Me This.